Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna hit go live. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry for being a little late. I tend to go with the flow and have some tech issues, so I apologize to you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. I have just enjoyed watching your videos and being an empath as well. Your group is super calming and helpful. For those of you hopping
Thank you.
on, yeah, thanks. We're having the beautiful Black Leadership live stream event. With everything that happened with George Floyd, obviously it spiked a lot of emotions and a lot of issues that really needed to come to the surface. And obviously this has been around for centuries, but now is the time to talk about it. So thank you for being here today with us,
Oh, you're
Christy.
welcome. My pleasure. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for hosting this event. I think it's very important. It's very
thank
important to have a
you.
discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Will you tell us a little bit about you and then, with the events of George Floyd, what this experience has been like for you?
Sure. So a little bit about what I do. I'm a holistic healer. I'm also a holistic health educator. So I'm really good at holding space for people. My specialty is to help those who are empathic. I work mostly with women, and I help them to heal naturally, easily, and joyfully.
Mm,
And it's often with chronic illness or chronic conditions. So it can be any chronic conditions, it can be with relationships, toxic relationships, or it can be with the physical body.
yeah,
But my specialty is to get to the root cause. And once you get to the root cause, then you can heal it quickly, easily with natural remedies. And then just with potent actions, you can get back into the flow of your life. So that's what I do. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry to jump in. Do you mind explaining to people who maybe don't know what an empath is, kind
Oh,
of where
sure.
you're headed? Yeah.
Sure. So empaths are those who have extreme empathy for others. So we're often called very sensitive or too sensitive, some people may say. But I always say that empathy is a gift. And if everyone in the world had empathy, the world would be a better place. So it's not a curse, it's not a weakness, it's actually a great skill. And it's just that many people have been told that they're too sensitive and they need to, toughen up and have a thicker skin, that people have suppressed this talent. And it's unfortunate. So I really help those who are empaths, have great empathy for others, to use it as a gift to help others and also to protect themselves, because as empaths, we can pick up the energy from others. We can pick up the emotions of how someone else is feeling emotionally and even physically. So even a bad back, we may all of a sudden like, oh, I got a bad back, or oh, I'm nauseous, and and then it's confusing because we're so sensitive. Sometimes we don't know, is it me? Am I feeling how I'm feeling right now? Or am I picking up somebody in the room or somebody who I'm talking to right now?
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Having been an empath, I do pick up on a lot of things too. So I admire what you do for people because it can be confusing. And you're right,
Yeah,
once you get to the root, it's like, oh, thank goodness. And your whole body and being feels different. So I
yes,
admire you for
absolutely.
that.
Yes, yes. So I've been an empath all of my life, absolutely. Yes,
Wow.
yeah.
Thank you. So being an empath through everything, with George Floyd passing, it was horrific. Like, how was that for you with the whole world having different emotions and struggling to
Well,
figure out which way was up? Yeah.
yeah, so it's a very difficult time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very difficult time for everyone all around the world with so much we've been going through. This is just one of many different issues we've been experiencing lately, the last
Mm-hmm.
few months. Of course, we have the coronavirus and being in lockdown, and a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are separated from their loved ones. And
Mm-hmm.
now, okay, we have racism to deal
Mm-hmm.
with, and we have abuse of power and corruption.
Yeah.
So I really want to talk today a little bit deeper, because I think that a lot of people are talking mostly about racism and how we need to squash this and settle this once and for all. Enough is enough. But I believe that it's really a bigger topic, and that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the reasons why it hasn't been healed yet. And it's not just racism, but it's the abuse of power and corruption. And
Mm-hmm.
so we can see this very, very clearly with the police departments, right? So that's something I want to really distinguish, is that it's not just racism. If we go into the systems and see the systemic racism, then we realize how deep it is. And then the other level is it's also about trauma. So we had slavery in this country, and most people do not realize how much it has impacted us and still impacts us still to this day.
Yeah.
And it still impacts us because we haven't healed it. So like I talk about with my one-on-one clients or with my group healings, it's very important to get to the root cause. And we haven't addressed the root cause, which is we had slavery in this country and we never healed from it. Okay, so it has been intergenerational trauma that has been passed down by generation to generation for those who are African American. And then there's racism that has been passed down from family to family as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we must also address healing of this trauma. Okay, so that's
That's
very, very
good.
important. And that's personal trauma that we have experienced, such as those who have seen violence done to their family and their loved ones, or those who have had, trauma against themselves. So there's the personal trauma we must heal, and then there's the collective trauma we must heal as well.
That's such a beautiful thing to pull out to that global perspective. And even in the US, a lot of people, and it is racist, say slavery was however many years ago, let's move on. But even just myself, I have a good family, like consciousness still gets passed down, like you said, ways of thinking or things that have happened, and I've had to heal from them. So for slavery, like you can see how through generations those ideas would pass. So I think that's a beautiful way to kind of pull out and see the bigger picture, and then see it in that the government as like an entity almost needs to be healed itself as well from that
Exactly.
time period. Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know very much about trauma, but that's one of also my specialties because I get to the root cause. And a lot of chronic illness is because of trauma that was not healed. So
Yeah.
when we don't heal something, it will stay in the body. So trauma doesn't just go away over time. It doesn't go away by suppressing our emotions. It only goes away when you heal it. And if you don't heal it, then you're passing it down to future generations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that people realize that just being kidnapped from Africa and coming to a new world and leaving
Traumatic.
all of your family and loved ones, that was a huge trauma. That was a huge
Mm-hmm.
trauma to begin with. And then we had slavery in this country since like 1500. So a long time ago. And it didn't end until 1863. So January
Yeah.
1st, 1863 was when President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that slavery was abolished.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 1865 that everyone let all the slaves know that they were free. So it wasn't until after the Civil War that finally Texas let their slaves know, oh, actually, you can go now. And
Wow.
so that's now why we celebrate Juneteenth. So today is Juneteenth.
Okay.
Happy Juneteenth. So
Yeah.
perfect day for us to be talking today.
Mhm.
So this is the day where we honor that slaves were finally free. The emancipation of slavery happened 1865. And that is when a change happened. But as you can see from what's going on right now, not enough healing, not enough
Yeah.
has been given back for what we took from our ancestors. So we got to go there to the root first and really understand how much slavery affected us, and then see how it has affected us through history over the years as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say like there's so much anger and so much hate, but I was like, thank goodness it's out, getting out of people's bodies, even if it's not pretty, even if it's not okay. Obviously, I don't condone violence, but thank goodness that suppressed state is just being lifted from an empathic standpoint. You can feel, but
Yes, yes,
even
there's
though it's
a
not
lot,
pretty, yeah,
a lot being expressed right now. Yes.
yeah, to allow it to be to come out so we can all heal in deeper states. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's important that we must express it. Again, the more you suppress anything, the more you're forcing it down. It's going to then explode in time if you don't allow it to be released. So it is a very important time for people to voice their voice, to allow
Mm,
themselves to be heard, to protest if you want to protest, to do it in different ways, such as through artistic expression if you're an
mm,
artist, There's all different ways of expressing your emotions and yourself right now, and I give everyone permission to do so. Okay, the only exception is if you are going to do so to be violent, to hurt someone else. That's
Yeah.
never okay. And that's
No.
continuing the cycle again, the cycle of abuse, the cycle of fear, the cycle of trauma. So we don't want that. But it is very important time for us to, really say, okay, I can share my voice now. But again, it's very difficult because I know you're an empath too, that there's just so much emotion right now. And a lot of it has gotten very, very angry. And a lot of it has gotten into shame and blaming and criticizing. So this
Yeah.
has created a very unsafe environment, especially on social media, I've realized.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've seen a lot of it in women entrepreneur groups. Again, I think it's been a good thing so voices could be heard, but how do you think we can take, all of this frustration and anger and blame and shame and lift it? Because a lot of people, are putting pressure, but to the point of bullying. And to me,
Mm,
that puts this whole slab of layer over the problem to push people to do things versus to like lift them up and let them be free and heal
yes,
from more of a loving state.
great question. So
Yeah,
I
so
believe we must have the focus to unify. This is a
mhm.
time to unify. This is not a time for us to be divided. Okay, we must see the bigger picture. We must not be reactionary and just take quick action and get really angry and force change quickly. This is something we have had for hundreds of years. We cannot do this overnight. We cannot demolish racism overnight and systemic
Yeah.
racism overnight. It's not going to happen immediately. So what we need to do is we must be calm. We must be grounded. Okay, that's where the spiritual practice is very important. I meditate every single day for at least 10 minutes. It's very important to have a strategy. Okay, so this is what I see on Facebook is a lot of people, getting very angry. Of course, it's justified to be angry, to be upset. It's not okay. But then they just want quick action and they want to blame other people. And blaming is always a way to control someone else. So
Mm.
when somebody blames somebody else, it's a way for them to silence the other person, to make them feel small. Shame is actually the lowest vibration you can be, the lowest emotion. Okay? So you're basically taking somebody who may just be at average, emotion, and then taking them down to the lowest emotion. And that, of course, is going to make you empowered. That's going to make you the one who can control them. Okay, so this is not about a time of us trying to control other people or trying to force our opinions onto others. It's really a time for discussion. So, what I say is we need to just be calm, like reel it in a little bit, get grounded first, take care of yourself first. Okay, we really need to heal ourselves. If we are very angry, if we are being triggered and our own trauma is coming up, we need to first take care of ourselves first. And that's for everyone, not just empaths, but everyone. You need to take care of yourself first. If you need to send some self love to you, some self care time, do that. Very, very important. But it is a time for us to unify. So we have to, see if somebody else is blaming or shaming on Facebook and say it's not okay. So that's what I've been doing on social media. I've been saying,
Mm.
I see this pattern and it's not okay. I know that you don't condone racism. I don't either, but I'm not going to shame or blame in order to create change. And a lot of times people just assume, this is another assumption, that people who are silent are racist. And that's not
Yeah.
true. Okay,
Yeah.
so I got to just smash that myth right away. All
Okay.
right, somebody who is silent, we don't know. We're not in their shoes. We must always have empathy for others, no matter what. Start with empathy. They may have just lost a loved one. Okay, we have the coronavirus going on. People are dying.
Yeah.
Or you may have had a loved one who had another illness, a terminal illness, and they just passed. Okay, or you may be struggling with your own illness. You may have cancer and you're really scared for your own health. Okay,
Yeah.
or you just don't know how to have a conversation about racism. We didn't grow up with these skills of how to talk about this.
That's
So we can't assume that we know why other people are silent, and we can't assume that they are racist. Okay? So I think that's very, very important. Don't make any assumptions. Instead, this is a time for listening. This is a time for mindfulness. First, be mindful of what's going on in your environment. Be mindful of our government, be mindful of organizations that may be racist, and then listen to others talking. Okay, so as a lot of people have been saying, this is a time to amplify Black voices, and I believe it is. But instead, a lot of people are talking over each other, and they're just talking and just making a lot of noise because they haven't had time to reflect. They haven't had time to look back at history. They don't have the knowledge of trauma and how that affects people. And they're just creating a lot of noise, creating more anger, inciting people to more anger, and that's creating a mess. It's
Yeah,
not good,
agreed.
not helping.
I,
Yes.
I love that you called out the cycle of behavior, because I actually do that all the time too. Sometimes instead of arguing with someone, calling out the bigger picture, the bigger cycle can end something. Like, here's what we're doing, this cycle, and I don't want to do it. You mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. Here's
Yeah.
what we can do so we can both feel heard. And then people can't hear you if you're shutting them down, is what you're saying,
Mhm.
essentially, where we have to listen in order to be heard.
Yeah,
You
you need
know,
to
so
you need to listen so that you can have a conversation. Because
mhm,
if you're just yelling at somebody, they feel like they can't be part of the conversation.
yeah.
They're just being shamed. And I see this happening a lot on social media, is that
Mhm.
there's public shaming. I have friends who are good people, very good, kind-hearted people, and they're publicly shaming other people, like putting pictures of people who they think are not saying enough right now, putting
Mhm.
videos up saying, oh, this person is not part of Black Lives Matter. And they're even posting private text messages, exchanges that are
Yeah.
private publicly to shame them. And I'm
Mhm.
just horrified. I don't know this other
Mhm.
person, but I'm horrified because that's never okay to publicly shame somebody. And it's not going to change anything. It's not going to end racism. And it's, again, not saying that that person is necessarily racism if you don't hear their side of the story and really have a conversation. They may
Yeah.
not understand. They may need to have some education for you to teach them. So you're missing out on an opportunity to teach them by just blaming and shaming.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. You
You're
say
welcome.
everything so eloquently, and so it makes sense. Oh, sorry, I got a little alert. But so I just appreciate that about you, just laying it all out, so that, people can grow and can do things differently, so we can all help each other through this. You mentioned a lot about grounding. I think that helps a lot with anger or being reactive. So do you
Yeah.
mind sharing a little more about that for
Sure.
people who
So,
don't know?
yeah, so grounding, you can do it through meditation. As I mentioned, I meditate every day for at least 10 minutes. When I had my chronic illness that I was trying to overcome, I actually meditated 20 minutes twice a day. And I really believe that is why I overcame my chronic illness.
Mm,
So, meditation is very, very powerful. It clears the mind. It even allows your mind to be clear so you can have downloads, so you can have inspiration, so that you can use that in your daily life. And it can be as simple as sitting down in a chair or on the floor, cross legged, and just turning off your phone, turning off all your distractions, and just breathing deeply, inhaling and exhaling. So it can be as simple as that. If you want to go a little bit more advanced, you can use a mantra and you can just think it inside with your eyes closed, just inhaling and exhaling deeply. And you can focus on the third eye chakra in the middle of your forehead. And that will really bring you into a peaceful place. So a lot of times people like mantras because that's something to focus on so that they're not thinking about their thoughts. But you can even just put on some music. You can just play some music that's relaxing for you. The key is not to multitask. You don't want to be meditating a little bit, but then somebody comes in the room and they ask you a question. No, no.
yeah.
You got to set the time. You got to say, okay, I'm just doing this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Make sure you're clear on the time and make sure everyone knows in your household, I cannot be disturbed. I'm meditating,
Mm,
and honor that. Okay. And it
yes.
can be as simple as that. It can even be looking at the sunset. Okay, just every day, look at the sunset and just focus on that. Don't be on the phone. Don't be talking. Just focus on the different colors and how they change. That is a meditation.
Mhm.
And also, spending time in nature is very grounding. Okay,
Oh,
so that's especially good for empaths because
yeah,
we're
yeah.
so sensitive and it's very good. But you can take off your shoes and your socks and just really have your feet on the ground, to touch the grass, to really feel that connection. Okay, because we live in such an artificial world these days. And we really need to connect again with nature, because nature is naturally healing. Nature is always there to support us, okay? So it's really good just to go for a walk, or just to lie in the grass, or just have your feet touching the grass. It's very, very grounding. That'll bring you peace, and that'll bring you into the present moment. That's what we really need, is to be present.
Mhm. I've heard a lot of people say I have crazy thoughts. Meditation's not for me. Can you debunk that idea too and explain, that that's part of the process and it's okay to have
Yeah.
racing thoughts?
Before I meditated, I thought the same thing. I can't clear my mind. I don't know how to do it, but I just did it. And that really helped me to overcome my chronic illness, 100%. It was
That's
also some
beautiful.
research that I did, but I believe if I hadn't meditated, in addition to doing the research and realizing different supplements and food I needed to take, then I still would be sick today, and I wouldn't be here doing this lovely video with you.
Yeah.
So again, it can be as easy as just breathing deeply, just inhaling and exhaling long, deep breaths. Count to 4, count to 8, whatever you can do. Okay, if you haven't been breathing deeply, or if you haven't been meditating, you won't be able to breathe as deeply in the beginning, but it's a practice. It's a practice just like everything else. So we can train our minds to be clear. We can train our minds to be calm. Okay, don't have the focus to completely clear out your brain. That's going to be hard for people. That's going to put pressure on you. But if you can say, okay, I'm just going to focus on this mantra. I'm just going to think so as I inhale. And then I'm just going to think hum as I exhale. Beautiful. And I'm just going to have my hands in a certain position, just relaxed at my side, or cupped in front of me, or even, touching together. Then you see how easy it can be. We tend to overcomplicate things. So
Yeah.
anyone can do it. Even children. You can teach your children to meditate.
Yeah. They've been
Yeah.
showing in schools, if kids meditate during detention, how much better they do
Yeah.
in
And
going
how
forward.
how good they feel. And again,
Mhm.
that just shows that there was a reason why they acted out. They weren't getting something that they
Yeah.
needed. They didn't have the coping skills. But then you teach them a coping skill to relax them, and then they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For uh other women watching this who, or I guess for you, for having my next question, I guess, is have you experienced racism, and how did you use these techniques to get past it so that other people watching could start to do the same thing without giving your program or what you do away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I'm very light-skinned. I'm very light-skinned African
Mhm.
American. And
Mhm.
so for me, my experiences have been different than most African Americans.
Mhm.
So I grew up in a very rich, affluent white community. I was one of basically 2 African American families in the whole town. It's a small town. And people didn't always know if I was white or black. So instead, the racism was different. Instead, I
Mhm.
received racism by people not knowing that I was black, but I could overhear them talking about how they hated blacks.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I remember on a school bus, and I was the last stop, always the
Oh
last.
no.
And so I remember this kid. I think he was just visiting one of my neighbors, because he didn't live in my block. But anyway, he was saying how much he hated blacks, and he was just going off and off and off, and
Oh.
just on and on and on about it. And finally, his friend said, "Quiet, be quiet. Chrissy's on the bus." And he's like, "So she's not black?" And he's like, "Yes, she is. Quiet." And
Yeah.
I was like very shy back then, so I didn't like stand up and say anything. I didn't know what to say. I was just completely shocked. I was like, "Whoa, I'd never experienced that before."
Yep.
And then when I went to college, then I went to London. I did my junior year abroad in London. So it's fabulous. I studied acting. I was a theater performance major. So it was fabulous to
Wow.
be in London. And so I was excited to be there. And in my program, we had students who were from other countries. So there was this man who was from Albania. And we had become friends. He was very nice. And then one day we had this conversation, and then he said how much he hated blacks. And
Oh,
I said,
no.
I said, what?
What?
I said, what are you talking about? I'm black.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, you're not black.
Oh,
You're
no.
white. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm black. And why do you say that? Why do you say that you don't like blacks? And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, well, in my country, we don't have any blacks. And, everything I know about blacks is from is from the United States, from movies that I watch. So in movies, they're always the gangsters, or always the criminals, they're always raping
Oh.
women. And
Oh.
so I know that they're savages, they're terrible people, and I never want to be around them.
Wow.
And I'm like, again, no, 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 I am black, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
And he just like didn't believe me because I was light skinned. He couldn't get over the fact that I was light skinned African American. How could I be the same as they are portraying in movies? So then
Right.
I realized, wow, how powerful Hollywood is, how powerful movies are
Yes.
to really influence people.
Yep.
And I didn't really realize, I mean, of course, I realized a little bit the stereotypes of African Americans, but I didn't realize that other countries were looking to those movies to have an understanding about Americans, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of people had never been to the US and maybe never would go to the US, and they would form their own conclusions. So I said, wow, okay, we got to do something about this because this is not changing. The same stereotypes are happening again and again of African American men and women in the movies. And I believe that is perpetuating racism.
I
They have a
agree.
responsibility. Yeah.
I've
So
re-
go ahead.
I've reached out to a few people who made comments that were worrisome to me, and they were actually outside of the US. So it's interesting that
Yeah.
you say that because what they were getting was from the news, which wasn't the whole
Yes.
picture of
And the
peaceful
news too.
protests and leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah, so and
Yes.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really believe we need to be more conscious. The media needs to be more conscious. Hollywood needs to be more conscious.
Mhm.
Even pop culture needs to be more conscious about
Yeah.
how we are being portrayed. Because again, this is influencing people. And, I'm doing this, I'm writing this book right now, and it's about holistic childbirth around the world. And it's been so interesting because so many of the mothers who I've interviewed have talked about being a conscious parent and conscious parenting. And this is kind of a new term
It
that
is.
women are talking about. And I think it's fabulous. I think it's very important because we really mold our children to become who they are. And that's why it's so important that parents teach their children to love and respect all races, all people, all religions, all backgrounds, right? It's
Yeah.
really the responsibility of the parent. But I have realized that we don't have conscious entertainment.
Mhm.
We have
Yeah.
conscious parenting, but we don't have conscious entertainment. People don't realize how much the arts can teach, how much the
Mhm.
arts can affect society, and to do it in a way without preaching. Do it in a way that people don't realize that they're learning. They don't realize that, oh, I want to do that. I want to be big. I want to be a leader. I want to do something to change the world. And that is the power that Hollywood has. But instead, we have so many movies and TV programs with just bang, 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 lots of violence, gratuitous violence going on and on and on until
Mhm.
people are desensitized about violence. And that's also part of the problem as well.
Yeah. Yeah, being a kind person, sometimes people think it's weird. And I always say I'm not gonna normalize everything that's going on right now in mainstream media. I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah,
not. So I
yeah.
can relate to that. Um, but yeah, I do think, like you said, art is such an amazing way and leadership to grow and to give back. Is that how you primarily got, after the racist comments happened, did it jolt you at all, or did you just feel happy
Oh,
and centered
absolutely.
still? Yeah,
Absolutely. It was
so,
very hard to understand and comprehend.
yeah,
And I just really realized that they were ignorant. They
yeah,
hadn't had the exposure to be around African Americans to really have discussions, to learn,
yeah,
to really ask questions. And they just assumed from what they saw on TV and in the movies that that was truth,
yeah.
that we should hate them. And so I think it's, very unfortunate, but I love my family. I grew up with a very loving family,
Mm,
and my grandfather was a historian. So he was very, very proud of our family history and would spend hours with us just going over old black and white photos and letting us
wow.
know all about our history, about where we came from and who our people were and how they fought and how they struggled. And I just had so much pride. I was just so proud to be a part of this family. And so when I experienced racism, it didn't affect me that badly
Wow.
because I just loved my family. I didn't feel bad to be African American. I felt proud to be African American. And I just realized that it was really that they were ignorant and I shouldn't take it personally. But still, it always jolted me. It
Total
always jarred
shock.
me a little bit. I was
Yeah.
shocked each time.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
shocked that they could be so bold to
I
completely
know.
say it out loud. I'm a racist. They've just flat out said it. I hate blacks. You know, how can you be more black and white than that?
Yeah, so with conscious parenting then, your grandpa did a great thing. So what would you recommend to these moms who are watching, trying to figure out how to explain this to their kids? Like, you know,
Well, you just have to start them young,
yeah.
letting them know again that they should love and respect everyone. And so it's not just saying to them, you need to love and respect blacks because of what's going on in the
Mhm.
news right now, but it's everyone. Okay. And so if they grow up with that, and if they grow up with exposure to different cultures and different minorities, then they will be fine. They won't be racist. But the problem isn't really just with those families. The problem is, of course, those families who are already racist,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, what to do?
Yeah.
And I think that's why there's been a lot of, fighting on social media, is because people think they can just fight it out of them.
Yeah.
They can just
Right.
just say you're racist and you have to accept this, and it's going to be public shaming until you get it, until you can change.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people don't realize that the people who really need to hear it are not on Facebook. They're not looking for people like, how can I change? Like, what can I do? I'm a racist. So the issue is a lot deeper. So yes, I believe conscious parenting is very important, that we should teach our children from a young age these important principles to love and respect everyone. But we also must, again, get back to healing the trauma. We must get back to realizing how it is corrupt in so much of our society. So in order to do that, we must go deeper. So there's like 3 different levels that I see. So the first level is healing ourselves, to really be conscious of, we must take care of our side of the street, as Gabby Bernstein, my spiritual mentor,
Mm,
says. So
mhm.
we must first, just take care of ourselves, okay? If you are not filled up, if you are not healed, then you can't really help and give as much to others, right? So if you are traumatized, if you are being triggered by everything you see on the news and everything you see on social media, you're not going to be the person who has the level perspective as to what to do. You're going to need the healing yourself. So always focus on healing yourself first, having empathy for yourself, compassion, love, feel yourself up, ground yourself, have self-care time. And then, of course, if you have children, teach them well, teach them about history, teach them about slavery, teach them about how the civil rights movement was, teach them everything you can. And again, to love and respect everyone. And then it's important to really go bigger and see the bigger problem. So to see Hollywood and how that needs to change, to see the police department and see the corruption and see the abuse of power. So again, there's a difference between somebody being racist, and there's a difference between somebody being racist and in a position of power. Okay? So it's not every racist that's going to kill someone. It's not every racist who's going to even inflict harm on other people, but it's only those who are in a position of power, such as police officers. So I really believe that they need to do a better job of screening. They should really make sure that they are fit for the job. They should really screen them to see if they have any bias against anyone, against blacks, against Asians, against people who are disabled, against the elderly, because they're supposed to be there to protect everyone, not to have a bias. So if they have a bias to begin with, they shouldn't be allowed to be a police officer. And if they have had trauma, if they've had, physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional abuse, again, they should be screened by a mental health professional to see if they are fit for this job, because it's very stressful, it's very chaotic, and it can trigger that trauma and also create new trauma because they see violence, they're part of violence.
Mhm.
So I really believe that mental health professionals really need to get in there and become a part of the police department,
Mm,
to
I
really
like that part.
screen and make sure that the best people are in power Okay, we shouldn't just give power easily to anyone. They should really earn it and really seem to be the best candidate. I know it's a very difficult job. I know not everyone wants to be a police officer, but still, that doesn't mean everyone should just by passing a test. And then, I think we need to really heal those who are African American who have witnessed trauma, who have witnessed violence. There's so much violence against them. And all those in the prison system, right? That's very traumatic, being in the prison system and then trying to come back into the workforce. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different levels that need healing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting what you said about having healers be like this part of the workforce, because you're right. If you see something happen, you may not even be racist, but biases start setting in and that fear and reaction starts to happen. So I think that would be an amazing thing
Yeah, and
to
send
shift
them
in that
healing
way.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for trauma, what do you recommend to someone who's experienced trauma?
Well, someone who's experienced trauma needs to get some help so that it is
Mhm.
resolved. So, like
Yeah.
I said, it doesn't just go away in time. It doesn't go away by not thinking about it or thinking positive thoughts only. It,
Yeah.
it needs to be healed, and it's very deep. So, it's in the body.
Mhm.
So, you really need to go to a professional. You really need to go to someone who can help you. Need to go to a trauma specialist, a healer. So again, I do that work. Not all healers help people with trauma because again, it is very deep,
Deep. Mhm.
but you need to have somebody who can really hold space for you. And the important thing about trauma is that you don't want to just talk about it. So it's not just about going to a talk therapist. Going to a talk therapist will not heal trauma. Okay, so that's again another misconception that people think, well, if I've been to therapy for years, I've got to be healed by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not exactly. So if you're not addressing it in the proper way, if you're just dwelling on it, if you're just going over again and again how tough it was and how horrible it was, that's not going to heal it. So again, you really need to get into the body, somebody who actually does some body work with you as well, perhaps some yoga, perhaps some meditation to learn how to clear
Mhm.
your mind. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, there are specific techniques such as EMDR that help you to desensitize if you really cannot function in day-to-day life. But you do need to get some help. You do need to go to someone, and it's okay. It's okay to go to someone. It's just very important that you take care of yourself, again, so it doesn't bleed into the future. So it doesn't, cause problems with your children or just your coworkers. You really need to take care of yourself so that you can help others. That's the
Mhm.
greatest gift that you can give.
Oh, I love that. The work that you do just seems amazing, and I do believe as we heal our own traumas, people around us start to heal too. It has this
Yeah.
echo effect. So just thank you for what you do. Do you mind telling us more about your book and your work?
Oh, sure.
And
Oh, sure.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm writing a book about holistic childbirth around the world. I actually just started it or was inspired to start it last summer solstice, so it's just been a year.
Yeah.
But I started writing it last July, so a little bit less than a year. And it is my baby. I'm so passionate about it. So, as I mentioned, holistic health and wellness is my specialty, getting to the root cause. And so for this book, I really go deep into understanding childbirth in a way that others haven't really been talking about it. Most people do not
Interesting.
talk about it holistically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So holistically is mind, body, and spirit for those who are not familiar with the holistic perspective. So what I decided to do was I decided to take childbirth not just from that one instance when the baby is born, but the whole journey. So the whole journey of how the woman feels emotionally and physically from the time she finds out she's pregnant. And
Wow.
then through the pregnancy, how does she feel emotionally and physically? What's going on? What does she try? How does she prepare for the birth? And then the actual birth experience, and then also postpartum. So it's the whole journey, and
Wow.
it's the whole experience emotionally and physically, not just what happens, but how she felt, and then the consequences of that. So it's very rich. I interviewed over 60 women all around the world.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. Very big project, interviewing for over 6 months. And fabulous stories, just absolutely inspirational. And this is what I wanted to talk about too, was because I learned something very interesting through this process, which I didn't plan. I didn't have an idea what I would discover from interviewing all these women. I was very
Yeah.
open-minded. And so I discovered that a common theme that a lot of women experience all around the world, not just in the US, is that they experience shame.
Wow. How come, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, don't mind at all.
Yeah.
No. So
I wouldn't
for
have
many
expected that.
reasons, for many reasons. So I really realized that what Brene Brown says is that shame is an epidemic. Okay. So when
Wow.
I started to see this with, the Black Lives Matter movement that everybody was shaming, I was like, oh my goodness, it really is an epidemic. So for women, we are the natural caregivers. We are
Mhm.
naturally empathetic, um, born to be mothers. And so women try so hard to always take care of others that they forget about themselves. They always are people pleasing. They want to just make everything good. And so women have expressed that they have felt shame from um, what you may expect, such as having a C-section. They may have wanted to have birth through natural delivery, and then they had to have a
Mm.
C-section, so they feel shame. Or they may feel shame if they had to have an epidural. And shame isn't necessarily from themselves. So sometimes shame is from themselves, that they wish that they had a different outcome. But oftentimes it's other women shaming them. And that just blew my mind. I was
That
like,
it
wow,
blows
this is
my
the
mind.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the time of female empowerment, and women are shaming other women about something that is so natural and, part of being a woman to be able to give birth. So when I heard that, I went, whoa, okay, this is a very big topic. And this may become, my specialty coming up because I've really gotten into it. But everything from women shaming other women, saying, oh, you shouldn't have an epidural, it's not healthy, it's not good for
Oh.
the child, or women just shaming themselves, saying, oh, I wasn't strong enough to have an epidural, I wasn't strong enough to
Oh.
just do it naturally, to women having shame of getting pregnant and not wanting to get pregnant, where other people have been trying so hard and they have trouble with infertility and they can't get pregnant. Or women who have an easy childbirth when so many women have had traumatic childbirths. So there's so many different stories, but the common
Yeah.
theme is shame, that it just keeps coming up. So with this book, I want to share all the different experiences so women can see that they're not alone. Because again, shame is the lowest emotion we have. And since it's so low, many women don't talk about what they're going through. But
Mhm.
through this book, again, I want to unify women and let them know we're all in this together. Okay, it doesn't matter what your experience is. There's probably somebody else who had a very similar experience, and you can see it differently through their eyes, through their experience.
Wow. I'm
So this
so
is amazing.
excited. That's
Yeah, thank you.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause I feel like, when you're pregnant, you look to your close, the loved ones around you, and you may have support and you may not. So what a beautiful book to have multiple perspectives and
yes.
really heal that deep layer. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
to be a great book. So I'm really excited
Good.
for it to come
How
out. Thank you.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so switching over to the dancing curtain, what does that mean to you? What is that? That's your expression. So what
Yeah.
is it? How did it start? Yeah.
So the dancing curtain is my business, and that started actually 2009 during the recession. So an interesting time to start a new business,
Interesting.
but
Yeah.
it was meant to be. I never planned to be an entrepreneur. I never had any desire to be an entrepreneur.
Mm.
But what happened was I was working at a contemporary art museum in Connecticut. I loved my job. I was working with all the exhibiting artists, so it was very fascinating to me, and I was surrounded by creativity. And they had created the job for me, but then with the recession, I had been downsized, excuse me. So I had lost my job. And I
Mm.
had been a workaholic. I had been so busy. I put everything into the job because I didn't study art history. I never planned to go into contemporary art. I was studying to be an actress, a performer.
Mm.
So I poured everything into it, and all of a sudden I didn't have a job. So what I found was it was summertime, it was August, and I just started having fun. I just started going out to the beach and to the pool and to the cafe, and I had so much fun, and something like erupted in me that
Mm.
I was constantly joyful. I
Mm.
didn't have any stress anymore. I would laugh all the time.
Oh.
I would just see everything as a short little comedy skit. So what I
Wow.
did was I just started to write them down, and I would just be laughing, and I would literally be writing all day long from the time I woke up in the morning to the time I went to bed
Wow.
at night. And then I would laugh and wake up in the middle of the night and turn
Oh,
on my light and just write some more. So I
that's
did
amazing.
this for like 2.5 months, 2.5 months straight. And it got to be the point where I don't know if you've ever been really, really joyful for a really long time without, any dips. I started to almost think I was going crazy.
Oh, no.
I was just so happy. Like all I cared about
Yeah.
was writing. That's all I wanted to do. I was like addicted.
Wow.
But then I realized, Christy, you're looking for a job. You're so passionate about this. Let's make this your money. Let's make this your job. So then I became an LLC. I developed my business and decided to start a comedy business. So it was
Wow.
literally writing comedic sketches. So again, I was using my expression, and it was so much fun. It didn't seem like work. It was great. And so it has evolved over the years because it has been a while. So it's no longer a comedy business. As I mentioned, it's holistic health and wellness
Yeah.
business. And so now I see one-on-one clients. I really help them to overcome their chronic illnesses and chronic conditions. I had my own debilitating chronic illness for 15
Mhm.
years, and I was able to overcome it. So I overcame it 1 month, again,
Wow.
after I got to the root cause, which was liver toxicity caused by heavy metals. So I had
Interesting.
extremely high levels of heavy metals in my blood, both lead and mercury. So off the charts, it was the highest my doctors had ever seen. They said I should have been paralyzed, I should have had brain damage, and they were just so surprised that I was
Wow.
functioning at all and still had a sense of humor.
That's funny.
So they
Oh.
said that's very high functioning to have a sense of humor. I was like, oh, really? Okay, well, I always have a sense of humor. I always look positively on life.
Yeah.
Um, so I was able to take that knowledge that I had heavy metals, and I did research on my own because I was determined to get well. And they had wanted to do chelation therapy, which is very costly. I didn't have any insurance at the time. It's very painful. It's one of the few substances that's kind of like chemotherapy. It goes into your bloodstream, and it takes out all of the minerals, all of the vitamins, all of the good
Wow.
stuff that you need in life.
Oh,
So
no.
so it's very painful. So like if you're exercising and you lose potassium, you start to cramp up, right? So imagine losing all of your minerals all at the same time.
I
Very,
can't
very
even
painful.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, I don't do well with pain. And then after doing research, I found out that it's one of the few substances that can pass between the blood-brain barrier. And because of that, it can
Oh.
cause disastrous results. Again, similar to what they had assumed that I could have had, the brain damage, the paralysis, and even death. So once they said that my cure could kill me, I said,
You're like, no,
no,
please.
that doesn't work for me. I
I'll
don't think
pass.
so. No.
Yeah.
So then that's when I decided to heal myself. So I said, I'm a healer. I've got the root cause. I finally figured it out. The blood test confirmed it. And so now I just need to get it out of my system. So I researched online, found out natural food and supplements I could take daily without any side effects. And so I took them for a month. I told myself at the end of the month that I would be healthy. I had my deadline. I was very clear, and I was meditating every day for 20 minutes, twice a day. I was thinking positively. I was eating these foods and taking these supplements, and they were taking my blood every 3 to 4 days because they were so high.
Wow.
They were
Wow.
afraid that they were still going up. And so the levels were going down. The levels were going down and down and down. And then finally, at the end of the month, zero.
That's
Completely gone.
amazing. Good
Yeah,
job.
yeah. And again, just from food and supplements. So that's what I really teach people, is that you can heal naturally. You don't have to take all this medication. You don't have to have all these toxins in your body. You don't have to listen to the doctor and all these fears that they instill in you. Because they told me it would take a full year of chelation therapy or longer because my levels
Wow.
were so high, going every week to New York City to have this done. And I did it in 1 month, naturally, you know?
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, yeah. So I want to
Yeah.
empower people with that. So that's what I do is I now empower people with their health and wellness. And, health and wellness is everything, like I said, from chronic illness to toxic relationships to boosting your confidence, etc. I am clairvoyant, so that's one of the skills I have developed over the years. I'm also a medium, so I can connect with the divine, even
Wow.
your ancestors or spirit guides. And so that gives me a lot of information. So when I'm working with someone, I have my expertise of over 15 years. When I was sick, trying everything.
Yeah.
I've tried everything.
Yeah.
So I have the personal experience of what works and what doesn't work and what everything is to be used for. And then I have, my expertise with energy work. So I'm a healer. I've been a healer for over 15 years. I do a Reiki shamanism blend. And then I have these skills of being clairvoyant and a medium and an empath. So
That's
it's
amazing.
very, very, yeah, it's a very rich session. I get so much information for people, so much understanding, so much clarity, and the messages are channeled. So it's like you have double protection. You have all the research I've done over the years on holistic health and wellness, plus you have double confirmation from my guides as to what specifically you need to take or what steps you need to take going forward.
Got
So
it.
that's what I offer for my clients. So they get a recording, they get an audio and video recording, and they also get detailed notes so they know, my visions to go over again because it's so rich, everything I give them, to listen to the recording again and to read the notes and then to do the action steps. So
Okay.
that is what is so important. Most healers do not give action steps. Most healers have a healing session and they make you feel really,
Yeah.
energized and empowered then and joyful. But then you're like, okay, well, what do? I just keep coming to you every week. But with me, I really want to empower my clients. I don't want them to depend on me. I want them to know they can do it on their own. They just need the tools. So I give them the tools and then it's up to them for them to implement the steps. And then they will get back to health, to wellness, to feeling great.
That's amazing. Do you mind sharing, for people where clairvoyant and guides are new words, do you
Sure.
mind sharing a little more about that?
Sure. So clairvoyant is clear seeing. So I actually see visions and imagery throughout the session. So this is kind of like, whoa, for some people, but
That's new.
all of us are, intuitive. We have different skills. This skill I developed when I moved to San Francisco. So before then I didn't have it. So it was, when was I in San Francisco? It was like 2012 that I started becoming clairvoyant and I started seeing visions during my sessions and I started sharing. And then my clients started to confirm, yes, that was me and my grandpa on the tractor as a child. That's
Wow.
what you saw. That was me in that mascot costume in college. Yes, that was me in a past lifetime. I have been told that I was a Thai man in a previous lifetime. So it was very confirming
Yeah.
that my visions actually meant something, and they could use that to help them. So that's what clairvoyant means. What was the other question? What?
Guides.
Oh, guides,
Yeah.
guides. So we all have guardian angels. So all of us here, we are spirits. So we have spirits, but we have a physical body. All right. So I really believe that we keep on coming back. We keep coming back to learn, to have different experiences. And so we have guides here to help us. So we're never alone. So people should know that even if you're feeling really low and depressed and nothing's working for you, you always have some invisible support to help you that you can call upon. Okay? And it doesn't matter what religion you believe in. I believe that everyone has spirit guides, guardian angels. So depending on who you are and where you are, in your spiritual level, it depends on how many guardian angels you have or what you need help with. But you also have spirit guides as well. So you have power animals that help you. You have archangels that you can call upon. So archangels are very, very powerful angels that can help like thousands of people at one time. So it's never a burden to ask them for help. It's never too much. They have very specific focus. So for instance, Archangel Michael is all about strength, right? If you need to feel empowered, if you need to feel physically strong or just mentally strong, call on Archangel Michael. So Archangel Michael is actually the archangel for people who are in the military. And I didn't actually
Interesting.
know this until I had somebody come in who was a war veteran who had post-traumatic stress disorder. And Archangel Michael came up, and he was also a paratrooper. So he would fall out of airplanes. That was what he specifically did. And
Wow.
Archangel Michael was the archangel of paratroopers. I was like,
Wow.
whoa, that was like so
That's
precise.
amazing. Yeah.
So yeah. So you can ask specifically for archangels to help you. You can ask your guardian angels to help you, or you can connect with your power animal. Okay, so we have so much support all around us. Again, for those who are clairvoyant, some people can see. They can see spirits, they can see ghosts, they can see things that other people can't see with the naked eye. Other people may be clairaudient. Clairaudient means you hear messages, you can hear spirit talking to you. There's also claircognizant, that's clear knowing, you just know things. It's not like you looked it up, it's like all of a sudden, oh, I just know that there's that many people in China. I just know the number,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of different skills that people have. So also clairsentient, I'm also that, so that's clear feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all blow my mind, to be honest with you. And I'm empathic, so I have some of those too on varying levels.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do, like you said, I think it's a gift that anyone can kind of be open to.
Yeah.
And it's what I tell people, it's like when you go into a room and that you know your body knows there's been a fight or something
Yes.
happy has happened and you thought of a friend and they were texting you, like, so we
Yes.
all have it on some level, and it's just either opening to it or fine-tuning it, or naturally having the gift, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
Practice makes perfect. So again, I had become very, very strong in clairvoyance, but I wasn't my whole life, but I've been an empath
yeah,
all of my life.
yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for being so open about that too. I
Oh,
think
you're
a
welcome.
lot of people are opening up to what they're feeling, especially being home, in quarantine. Your things have
Yes.
quieted down.
Sure.
You're starting to feel and be more sensitive.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything on your heart that I'm missing as a question right now that you'd also love to share? And I'll look at the comments too. We'll see if we
Oh
got
yeah,
any
let me know if anybody
questions.
has any comments or questions.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to answer any questions. But I guess I'll just say that again, just to reemphasize how important it is for everyone to heal their trauma. So if anybody watching needs help overcoming trauma and they feel like they've tried everything to no avail, I welcome you to set up a session with me. It's very inspirational and empowering. So as I said, I do not talk the whole session. We only talk a little bit in the beginning, and then you receive the energy, and then you get the inspiration of the clairvoyant reading. So really, it's a very enjoyable process, even if you have
Yeah.
had something like trauma.
Trauma. Yeah, and from you, I get that you're very open to hearing the traumatic stories because I've seen healers where they say that, but when you start talking, they're
Mm.
not as open. And so just thank you for being so open to heal such deep layer wounds for
Oh, you're
sure.
welcome. I think
Yeah.
it's important. Yeah, no, I really can hold space for them, and I
Mhm.
don't have any judgment. So in a
Yeah,
session,
that's
you can
it.
just, again, express yourself. If you want to be angry, if you want to complain, if you want to stomp your feet, if you want to cry, it's fine. Whatever
Yeah.
you need to do to release and express yourself, that is part of the healing. And that's something that people, I think, are missing right now. Everybody's
Mhm.
connected to technology, to texting, everything's so quick that people don't really hold space for others like they used to. Of course, we can't see people in person like we used to, but still, the gift of holding space is healing, and people need to be heard and need to just express themselves without any judgment. That's very, very important.
Definitely. And then the term holding space might be new to a few people too. So do you mind explaining that a little more as well?
Sure, sure. So holding space is allowing someone to talk without trying to fix them, without trying to correct them. It's just allowing them to express themselves and just for you to listen. So, like I talked earlier about how important listening is right now for this conversation on racism, it's very important, if you really want to heal someone, to hold space, to just really listen and be present. It's very, very important.
Yeah. And what a beautiful gift to give too. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I feel. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we got some comments. Day Boone said, Christy is a wonderful healer and teacher.
Aw, thank
Eric,
you.
yeah. Eric said, yes, the lack of diversity, both in content and the creators in media, entertainment, and the arts, is a big part of the systemic nature.
Yes,
I was
yes.
agreeing with that. Melissa Alves said, yes, it is. I'm not sure what part she was responding to.
Okay.
It's cute. And
But I'll
then,
just piggyback on what Eric said. Absolutely. So
yeah,
we need
sure.
more, diversity in movies. We need, more minorities to be present in movies and
Yeah.
TV, but also just, change the story about how they're being perceived,
Hmm.
really allow full pictures. I mean, we're complex people. And I think that's it. We shouldn't just stereotype. And that's also something I think is important for people to think about, is that we shouldn't think of people as labels. And I think that's
Hmm.
also what's happening right now with this discussion, is people are labeled other people. But we really need to see the full person. Very, very important.
Yeah, sorry, it's cutting out. Let's see. Are you there? It froze, but at least you're
Yes,
smiling.
Mercury in retrograde.
Mercury
I'm
retrograde.
still here. I can see you, but you're frozen.
Oh no. Can you see me now?
I can see you. Yes, it
Okay.
just says internet connection unstable, but you're still there.
Okay, sounds good. And then the last comment was, speak your truth, listen, and be kind to one another. Just reflecting what you were
Beautiful.
saying.
Yes, I agree. Yes, very good point.
Well, thank you so, so much for being here today. Thank you for being open about you and your
Oh, you're
process
welcome.
through all of this and everything that you do. And just, again, you're just radiant and bright and beautiful. You're the joyful empath group has just been, it just makes you feel safe being an empath. So I recommend anyone
Thank
watching, please hop in. Yeah.
Yes, so that group is called the Empowered Joyful Empath. So
Sorry.
it's a
Thank
private Facebook group. You just have to send a request, but of course I will allow you to come in. The more the merrier, and it's specifically for empaths to really support them so they feel joyful and empowered. But if anyone's interested, you're welcome to come on in.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. And then again, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can go to the Dancing Curtain on Facebook.
Sure.
They can send me a private message. They can also go to my website, which is www.thedancingcurtain.com.
Got it. And we'll have those in the description, and then I'll write it again in the comments so people
Okay,
can easily access it. Yeah.
okay, great. Thanks.
Yay. All
Wonderful.
right.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jenna.
so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, too.
Thank you too. Enjoy your
Thanks.
weekend.
Thank you. You too.